Annapolis for the NFL Combine. Luke and I will be on all things there. They're having a little basketball tournament in Indianapolis this week, as well as the ladies of the Big Ten will all gather there. But this guy will be in the Big Apple with the men's side of the draw. He spent 2 decades as the AD at Loyola and the Mighty Greyhounds. He's now up there in semi-retirement somewhere in the swamps of Jersey and actually doing Rutgers men's basketball color commentating up there in the great Garden State. He will be headed to Madison Square Garden for the long weekend. Might be a short weekend if you're doing Rutgers, Joe Boylan, but I would say this, Maryland's heading up there, and this doesn't feel like it's heading in the right direction for Maryland, and it almost feels like a little bit of a turd for the Big Ten being in New York in some way. Apparently ticket prices are depressed, and not a lot of folks are coming in from the friendly heart of the Midwest, apparently.
Well, I think when Maryland and Rutgers went into the Big Ten, that was part of the agreement. I think that they would play, Washington last year and then New York this year. So I think that was just and it actually the Big Ten actually opened up a satellite office, I think, last year in New York. So, it's all part of the marketing strategy and Big Ten Network and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, the Madison Square Garden is a great place to watch a game, and New York is a terrific town. There's so much to do there, and I think everybody in America should actually go to the 9/11 Museum, and it's an amazing thing to see. So, along with the Statue of Liberty and a lot of other stuff. But, we'll see. It should be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, Maryland's coming up. They're going to get that noon Thursday game against Wisconsin to play in. You guys are doing play-in, of course, against Minnesota. Some thoughts about the tournament and New York. And this will never happen again, right, where they bang the tournament back a week early to get into New York. Then, lo and behold, next week, not only Big East, but the ACC doing their thing up at the Barclays up there. New York's going to have its fair share of basketball here over the next couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, they really will. No, I don't think they'll do this again. I mean, coaches had to agree this summer to do it, to compress the schedule. And, you saw teams play, 4 games in 8 days and that kind of thing. But they all agreed to do it for 1 year. And next year, they go to 20-game schedule, and it'll be spread out, and the tournament will be normal. I think it goes back to Chicago next year. So, I think it's good exposure for the Big Ten, I think. And I think for players too, if you're there for a couple of days, it's just it's kind of a neat city to be in if you're from the Midwest and you haven't been to New York, and it's really a very vibrant, alive place now. That's for sure. A lot going on there, as there are in a lot of cities, and it's a very safe city now too. They've really, since Giuliani came in the '90s, and Kelly and Brandon Braxton and O'Neill now, another Irishman, is the chief of police. They've really done a good job. So it's a great place to go, a lot of good things to see. And, I hope Rutgers can stay more than one night. There's no question about it. Maryland, Wisconsin, Maryland has a good chance against Wisconsin. Wisconsin's, have struggled, no question about it, as has Maryland. But, Maryland is probably, I think, better than Wisconsin. And on a neutral floor, I think they have a chance to go play Michigan State that Friday, March 2nd. So,
Joe Boylan joining us here. He is one of the voices of Rutgers basketball. He will be in the Big Apple, as will Maryland, and so will Michigan State and Izzo. And on the backside of this incredible Nestor story, one of the worst stories I've heard in recent memory about sports and anything involving sports, and the FBI getting involved with basketball. Joe, you've been around this a long time. This is not new to the party, that $100 handshakes and bags of money and envelopes are exchanged and all that stuff. But certainly Maryland's been dragged into that incursion last week with the Diamond Stone story. And obviously Michigan State has had just problem after problem there. You used to run around with a hose and put out fires over at Loyola when they happen, and certainly at this level at Michigan State and with the FBI now involved and the other problems they've had there, I know they're one of the favorites to be in the Final Four this year, to be a national championship contender. But this thing's going to get heavy in the coming weeks, I fear, and probably should get heavy based on the stuff I'm reading and seeing.
Yeah, I think you have to be careful, though. The Michigan State, let's just look at the Michigan State and Bridges. I think you put out, supposedly on, and some of this stuff is accurate, but a $70 lunch, I mean, did that take place? They took out a $400 ATM account and they put Bridges. Did that go to Bridges' mother? Now, I know Tom Izzo pretty well, and I think he's one of the really good guys in the business, and I think he's handled it very well. I mean, the whole Nasser thing, with the assault on those gymnasts is appalling to me. I mean, it's appalling that somehow U.S. Gymnastics let that go on. Somebody had to know that, and just the fact that he was at Michigan State, I think to try and put that brush on Michigan State because of that, and there's some other issues there, but I think the Bridges thing is really well overblown. I think there's really not, at least from what I can tell, there's nothing there. But the other side of it is when the FBI gets involved, they don't usually get involved unless if they get involved, they're going to follow through. Now, the biggest problem I think, Nestor, is going to be the FBI has a lot more important things to do than college basketball. To be very honest with you. In college basketball, and they just got into it they were doing a wiretap, and that's how it all started on something else. But I think it's really energized the NCAA to do something. Now, the question is, what will they do? And the NCAA does not have subpoena power. So, they can go to a school and they can investigate, but they can't subpoena records. The FBI can do that. They can subpoena phone records. And so it'll be interesting to see. I mean, when Sean Miller at Arizona, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. There are a couple other coaches who are coaching now and who are doing pretty well, who are, I think eventually that domino will fall. And hopefully when all that happens, that, things will settle down. There are a lot of good people in the business, but there are also a lot of bad people. And I think, a lot of it starts through, AAU programs. There are a lot of terrific AAU programs, great AAU programs, but there's some like in every business. And the other thing is, I think, when you get in competition, the shoe companies and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see what the NCAA does. I think one thing they could do is to say, hey, you know what? If you're at a school, you don't get any money as a coach from a shoe contract, period, end. Nobody. The money all goes to the school. Rick Pitino got, what did he get? The school got, I don't know, $4 or $5 million, and he got most of that money. The school only got like $500,000. I mean, that's absurd. So we'll see what happens. But hopefully, I mean, I remember the scandals of the 50s. And, that was a pretty significant thing. And then there was one in the early 60s. But this is a different thing. It's not about throwing games or things like that. This is just about buying players and things like that. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, Joe Boylan joining us here, the pride of Milford Mill, and, of course, 2 decades as the AD over at Loyola, now up doing Rutgers games. Joe, I was going to ask you, from the inside out, and you knew a lot about this and still know a lot about this, it feels to me in my lifetime, and even in the years of Loyola, it hasn't really changed much from a student-athlete perspective that you can't get paid, you can't take free pizza. I found old pictures of me with Fang Mitchell after Coppin State pulled their upset. I had 16 kids in the studio eating pizza, and I'm realizing I probably broke the NCAA violation feeding these kids free pizza that day and having pictures of it 21 years later. But, I mean, I don't know that it's changed a whole lot. When March Madness comes 2 weeks from now, there's 64 or 68, whatever many teams now dribbling basketballs, and coaches are making more money than ever. Schools are making more money, and there's more money being produced and exchanged hands. But it's still not ever trickling down to the guys that are actually doing it, the athletes. And I thought at some point, and I've had Ed O'Bannon on the show here recently with his book Court Justice, and I've been talking about this for 27 years on the radio. I figured at some point the stipend word would work in, or in some way Title IX would get involved, and women and men would all get some $50, something. It's unbelievable. It's been like almost mafia-esque over 50 years that not much has changed except the top number for the networks, the coaches, the shoe companies, the handlers, the bag, all that stuff that exists around basketball. The kids still aren't getting the money, man.
Well, I think one thing they've done is they've added cost of attendance. So, let's say if you get a Pell Grant, which means, let's say you have total need, which a lot of kids do. And so you can get up to, I think it's almost $12,000 a year. in a Pell Grant, and that's on top of everything. So, if you go to school now, the one thing they've done with the nutrition, and this goes for especially football and basketball, but all the sports too, is basically you can eat 24 hours a day. They have these nutrition places open where the players can go all the time. So if you get $12,000 a year, say you get $5,000 or $6,000 on its cost of attendance. That's what they've added recently. Now each school has a different. It could be $2,000, it could be $3,000, it could be whatever it is. So let's say it's $18,000 a year. Now, $18,000 a year is not a lot of money. There's no question about that. But if you don't have to pay for anything, I mean, that's over $1,000 a month that you have to do what? So I think it's the idea that the players don't get anything. I think they've done a pretty good job stopping it. Now, who do you pay? That's the thing. How do you do that? And Title IX is right there. There's no question about it. The idea. I remember years ago when I remember talking to Tom Osborne at a NCAA meeting, and I just happened to sit next to him, little Loyola in big Nebraska, and one of the nicest people, by the way, you ever meet, as well as a hell of a coach. And he said, I understand that a lot of these coaches think that the Congress is going to say exempt football from all this stuff. He says that's not going to happen. There's 435 congressional districts, and there are a lot of women that vote in those districts. Those guys want their jobs, and he was right about that. So I don't know what the answer is, but I think I agree with you about the coaches' salaries. I think they're out of control. There's no question about it.
Well, part of this, and talking about the FBI earlier in the week, and I had Chris Pike on, one of your pride there from the mighty Greyhounds and all that, and I said, why here, why now? And I'm thinking to myself, well, most of these guys, the Izzos of the world, are state employees, and they are the highest paid state employees that there are anywhere, whether you're Nick Saban in Alabama or whatever. And most educators don't sort of dig that. Most state employees probably don't dig that. And thinking that this stuff is happening at a level where it's not on the up and up probably irks some people and, probably has gotten out the ire of lots of people in lots of places as the numbers have gotten really outrageous. When you consider how much a Lefty Driesell or Dean Smith was making many years ago with what Rick Pitino's making now, it's a different world. But, the same people are paying the freight, the citizens and the taxpayers and the people that support a public university in a lot of cases.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, the fact that any basketball coach makes more than $5, $6, $7 million is there's no justification for that. None. I mean, there really isn't. And you can talk about now. There might be a few. Like I think you could make a case for Krzyzewski. I know it's Baltimore and Maryland, but Mike, with USA Today and everything else, you get pluses and minuses there. But he's kind of an icon. But he's 70-some years old. But for a mid-level coach to be making $3 or $4 million, and for a coordinator in football at Texas A&M to be making a couple $1 million is absurd. I couldn't agree with you more. I couldn't agree with you.
Well, these programs generate a lot of money. I mean, it really does speak to how much money is out there when Texas can pay their defensive coordinator $2 million a year. It's right.
I agree, and I think it's interesting. And I think it's really hard. I would think that payment. It's interesting to see the reaction of other football coaches to that. I think for the first time, I saw, at least in a couple of cases, where people said, "Hey, we're not doing that. I don't care what you're doing. That's not going to happen here." And I think maybe there will be some reset. To me, the big thing is get the shoe companies out of direct contracts with the coaches. Done. And if they want to give money to the schools, if Under Armour wants to give money to Maryland, if Nike wants to give it to Duke or North Carolina or whatever, that's fine. But the coaches don't get that money directly. And if you do that, I think that's a start. And the NCAA can mandate that. Now, if somebody pushes back on it, they're always afraid about lawsuits. But to me, that's a start. Just eliminate those direct payments from shoe companies, and that'll bring some of the salaries down. And these are tough jobs now. Let's face it. I mean, there's an incredible, because of social media, it's an incredible amount of scrutiny, and and you know, Nestor, better than anybody because you've been in the business for a long time and you've seen it change. It used to be somebody would say something and you'd have to have some facts. Now they say it and everybody accepts it as facts, and even if it's not true.
Yeah, I've noticed that down at Pennsylvania Avenue. So, yeah, I believe me. The trickle-down effect has made its way everywhere. And, for Mark Turgeon and what he's gone through here, and, everybody's calling for his head all the time. Look, the Diamond Stone thing is a smudge. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And anytime you swoop a kid down from Wisconsin in the middle of Big Ten territory to come sit in College Park for 13 weeks and dribble and then leave and go out the side door, I would say this. It was the one chance Maryland's had under Turgeon to win a national championship or to be that kind of a team where they could have been a Final Four team with Suleiman and Trimble and those guys a couple years ago. Did not happen. That's fine. But here we come a couple of years later with a smudge on a $14,000 payment. Now Turgeon's rolled into this thing. And I think on top of that, the loss of Jackson and Bender and how the team performed and where they are, which is going to be not in tournament 10 days from now once the brackets come out. I don't think if you're looking for his head now, I guess is a good time to get it. But I don't sort of understand that in the Big Ten right now. I think he's done a pretty nice job, and I think this year's a major disappointment. But it's almost an incomplete grade when your best player doesn't make it to post.
I couldn't agree more, man. We only played him once, but you put Jackson on that team, they're a different team. They played a lot of good games, and I think he's done the best with what he has. I mean, Fernando, the big kid, the difference between him at the beginning of the year and now is terrific. I mean, he's really come a long way. They've done a good job. Obviously, played more. He's got more touches. Herder's good. Callens is good. Now you drop Jackson on that team. All of a sudden, they've got to play Jackson. Herder's a little more free. Fernando gets more touches. So a player.
Well, a lot of guys like Wiley wouldn't have got minutes. I mean, they were.
That's exactly right. And I think. The other thing the NCAA, I think, is going to do, and I think the NBA is on board with this. The question is, can they do it quick enough? It's the one and done is done. And I think, people say, well, college basketball won't be the same. Yes, it will. It'll be different. Just because, 20 players, 20 really or 30 or 40 really good players aren't playing in college, that doesn't mean the game's not going to be good. I think the one and done, when they take that out, I think that'll really help. And then what they do with the transfer rule, how all that plays out, which they're working on now. So there's no question this is the NCAA's chance to do something because the FBI has wiretaps, and they're going to indict some people. There's no question about it. So everybody's on board, I think, and there are a lot of nervous people out there. I mean, a lot of nervous people with good reason, and sometimes. I just go back to the fact that just because somebody says something doesn't mean it's true. But if the FBI says it's something, then it's true. So that's the difference now than before. And I think, the fact, the other thing is, I think basketball is a little different. Football, you could say, well, I don't know what I've got 15 assistants and, 5 graduate assistants and things like that. I may not know what everybody does. But in basketball, it's a little different. I mean, you've been around the game. Basketball assistants, they do what they're told, and I think it's going to be hard to disassociate those assistants from the head coaches as much as they're trying to do that now. Now, there are occasional cases where a guy, will just take the money himself, but I just think it'll be interesting to see. The next 6 months will be really interesting. I think it's a chance for college basketball to try and do something. There's no question about it.
Joe Boylan, longtime Loyola AD, is our guest. He is one of the voices of Rutgers basketball. He'll be headed to the Garden this weekend. Just a brief primer on the tournament. We've seen all these teams. You've seen all these teams right now. Wouldn't shock me to see an Ohio State or somebody come in and steal this thing this weekend, and maybe a team not named Michigan State or Purdue, who are the chalks going into this thing. But, I've seen teams rest up and get out of the way. This is a little different, though, when you consider that nobody's going to tap on anybody's door for at least a week because of the earliness of this tournament. It is weird. It's just weird all the way around, I think.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to Tom Izzo when he played at Rutgers at the beginning of the year, and I was talking to him about this, and he said, and he made a good point. He said, "Hey, we all agreed to it, so this is the way it is." we can't complain about it. This is the way it is. Well, it'll just different. It won't happen again. I would say this. I think Purdue is really good because they got good inside, outside, and they got four seniors. They're kind of on a mission a little bit. They had that little bump where they lost 3 in a row. But Mathis the other night, I think, missed 2 shots. He had like 28 points. Ohio State's an interesting team. I mean, when they're efficient offensively, they're really, really good. But they're not a great team. But he's done a great job with that club. Nebraska is talented. I mean, they've come on at the end. And Michigan is always there. Michigan State seems to be playing right now at a very high level. Now, they've been through a lot. I mean, I think Coach Izzo has done a really good job there, somehow keeping that group focused on that. And it's hard to do. There's no question about it. But if anybody can do it, he can do it. I just think he's not only a good coach, but he's a terrific person as a human being. And so we'll see how it plays out. I would say Penn State has some really good players. And
well, they're the team with the most to gain, right? I mean, they're the team that could make a stride this weekend and say, yeah, we want to be in the tournament. You know, I don't know that Indiana's going to get there, and I don't know that Nebraska is not going to not be there. I think Nebraska's going to get the call either way.
That'll be interesting. I think if Penn State could beat Northwestern, who's struggling now, obviously McIntosh is really hurt. I don't think he's going to. I mean, he's going to play, but they say his shoulder. He has trouble even lifting his one arm above his head, so that's going to hurt them. I mean, if they could beat Ohio State and get to Purdue, you know, assuming Purdue gets by, Indiana or Rutgers or Minnesota, but I would say that should come down to Purdue and Michigan State. I mean, I would be surprised if it doesn't do that. There's no question about it. And as I said, the players for Purdue are kind of it's a unique group, Nestor, in today's world. Just think 4 seniors. I mean, 4 seniors have played 4 years together. I mean, that just doesn't happen anymore. And they have a great chemistry there, and they can score. They can really score. They really can. They get the right matchup, they could be good. Michigan State, I think a lot comes down to their guard. If Winston is playing well, they really have a chance. But if he doesn't, then that machine sometimes putters a little bit. But it'll be fun. I think clearly I think Virginia is probably as good as anybody right now just because of the way they play. I don't think there's any question about that. I think Villanova, once Booth gets back totally, they can really score easily. And Xavier's pretty good, and I thought they'd beat Villanova, and Villanova went in there and just, beat them pretty good. I don't think there's anybody in the West at this point. Gonzaga's not as good as they were last year, not even close. So I think Duke, player for player, probably has as much talent as anybody in the country.
A lot of people are flying the Virginia flag as well, so that thing's going on as well.
I mean, he's done a great job there. They play differently, and they're all of a sudden they're at the top. So we'll see what happens. The one thing about them is these other teams, if they shoot the ball badly, they can have a bad shooting, like Villanova. If they shoot the ball just fair, they could get knocked out by anybody. But Virginia, because they play defense, it doesn't make any difference. They're going to play the same way all the time. And, you get to the tournament, that's important. So it'll be interesting to see, I think. But I still think Duke has an enormous amount of talent. There's no question about it. They're a very, very talented team. Now, whether they defend as well as they should, who knows? But I think the tournament's as wide open as it's ever been, to be very honest with you.
Well, we'll all be on board on hating on Duke because we might not have a team at all. Your Greyhounds, not so much. Coppin, Morgan got in a brawl the other night, not so much. I'm wearing the UMBC Dogs shirt right now to support Ryan Odeman and the group down there. And, they got the new building down there. It's beautiful, so they're going to actually get to play games. And that's kind of a neat thing when your conference plays home games as opposed to everybody getting in a bus and going to Richmond for no good reason or whatever, right?
Yeah, he's done a nice job there at UMBC. He really has, and I think that's a good sign. You're talking about Fang, one of my favorite people, and one of yours too. I remember that weekend in Pittsburgh, and he owned the town.
That was a lot of years ago, Joe. A lot of years ago.
It was a tough loss for Eddie in South Carolina, but he said, if you had to lose to somebody, Hank certainly enjoyed it.
Oh, man, I got these pictures, Fang, with a big smile. We had all his kids out for pizza. That was a hell of a team he had back then, too. 21 years now,
good.
So we're going back into the Wayback Machine. Joe, always good to bump into you. Enjoy yourself up in New York. Do me a favor. Get some good pizza while you're up there for me, okay?
I always do, Nestor. Hey, congratulations on a great career. Keep it going.
It's not over with yet. Believe me, well. I'm diving into new territory here this year, 27 years in, Joe. They haven't heard the last of me yet. They've been writing me off for 27 years. We'll see. We'll have them write us off for 27 more.
Well, I'm from Pikesville. You're from Dundalk. Good luck.
We'll meet somewhere around Parkville, Loch Raven, halfway. How about that?
Okay. All right, Nestor. Take care.
Joe Boylan, my man from Milford Mill. Don't let him fool you. Class of 56 says so right here on his Loyola bio. He's in semi-retirement up there in the swamps of Jersey, calling Rutgers basketball, enjoying himself after 2 decades as the AD at Loyola. Lots of basketball in New York, lots of football in Indianapolis. Luke and I are in Indianapolis all week for the Combine. We'll be broadcasting from Indianapolis. You can check us out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNST TV channel. All of the stuff we're doing in Indianapolis brought to you by our friends at Howard Bank, a relentless commitment to be the best at everything they do. Branches throughout Baltimore and Maryland. You're going to find one near you soon. I'm taking my little hydration break in my Howard Bank cup that they've given me here. I got Royal Farms, real fresh, real fast. No coffee right now. I'm caffeinated enough, but I'm working on that fried chicken as well as those Western fries. You got to download the Rofo app. Use that on your phone when you pump your gas. It's going to save you money, earn you points, and you're going to be able to get your chicken and your Western fries for free. So sign up, get your rewards, get your app. Sign up at online. Download the Rofo app. They got some updates coming to that soon as well. The Maryland Jockey Club is with us as a partner. The entries now up at WNST.net as well as in our morning newspaper coming your way each and every morning at 7 a.m. It's all brought to you by the Maryland Jockey Club and Laurel. Cure those winter blues. You get down and see some racing this weekend. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.